Okay. You're talking about situationalism. What's that?
Situationism is a theory, a French theory, that caused the Sorbonne riots in 1967. It's the idea that we are stuck within the spectacle, that modern capitalist society is a spectacle, and we are, whether we want to be or not, we are participants in it. And Guy Debord said that we must, that any rebellion that happens, so like feminism, so Gloria Steinemann is a good example. Instead of the original feminist idea espoused by like Reed Annie Bessem and Mary Wollstonecraft and like Rosa Luxemburg and Emma Goldman and stuff, is that nobody is equal to everybody is equal. Men, women, lower class, everybody's got to be equal. But see, like then like American feminism, you have this idea of we can be just as good as white men. We step on everybody's head, okay, and become capitalist men.
Right.
And so in situationism, that's the idea of detournement, where you take a rebellion like feminism and you turn it back against itself so it becomes part of the mainstream. So all rebellions get detourned, so we have to reorn them, and that's where you take it back, where or like the Billboard Liberation Front, taking their stuff and turning it back against them, turning an advert into something that subverts that advert.
All right. So I was in Wellington and I saw what I thought was a Banksy on the footpath that had been sprayed there. And I thought, great, at last a bit of graffiti, because I couldn't find any graffiti anywhere. So when I had a look at it, and I realised
it was an advert.
It was a fucking advert, yeah.
That's
so that's them doing it to us, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so so we have to take their we have to take their stuff and turn it against them.
Okay, right.
Like politics, what you're doing with the Poets Party, we're taking their politics and we're turning it against them.
And don't tell them, because then they'll turn it against us again.
Yes.
What's the can you remember a time in your life when everything was wonderful? Because I can. Is that the difference between your generation and mine?
I had a bad shit happen that like sent me off into like theology and shit like that little kids should think about why God hates them and stuff. That kind of stopped me from maybe being happy.
What are you talking about, Catholicism now?
Just a general idea that if somebody's like you've been a party to something that you know is shameful and wrong, that you end up screwy. But then, like you see it, well, my generation, in the 1997, we got the core samples from Antarctica that told us that we were fucked. Like, I mean, the kids talk about, back in the 80s they knew about climate change. I don't think they know that the core samples from Antarctica told us that the amount of carbon that was currently in the atmosphere in 1997 meant that the whole of Antarctica is going to melt.
Okay, so when you meet someone my age who says, oh gee, I'm joining Extinction Rebellion because I just realised, do you get angry? Because we should have known a long time ago. And
because I knew and there wasn't fuck all I could do about it. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is at least now there's enough of a groundswell for us to help do something about it. But we've got to stop thinking we can stop it. We've actually got to start working with what we know is going to happen. We know the sea levels are going to rise that much. We know there is going to be this amount of refugee crisis. We've got to start planning for that. That's the most important thing for us now.
If nobody does that planning, if you can't get a government to lead, then you've got to become the government, or else you become an individual and you put big walls up around yourself. What is that too simple?
No, because it's like that for all of us, and I'm really... When I did the anarchist stuff back in the 90s, we wouldn't have called it terrorist training, but after 9/11 they would have called it terrorist training.
Right.
And that is knowing how to disable a city and do the things that are necessary. That's not a bad thing. I mean, that's what's in, like, the Americans, that's what the American Constitution is about. If you need to change the government,
Yeah.
that's why they're all mental about their guns.
About the guns, of course. Yeah.
But you have to know how to do this stuff, because it may come down to that. And we've like, well, we weren't very lucky. I mean, we had neoliberalism and stuff. At the moment, I'm not even sure if it's worse, neoliberalism by stealth, by having good social policy, where it starts to look like you're doing the right thing. That's almost worse, while you're still selling everybody down the river.
You mean it anaesthetizes the worry in people?
Jacinta, she looks like a lovely lady and she cares about people, and she does, and that's lovely. But she's still playing that neoliberal party line, and not looking at what's going to happen. I mean, much as China is terrifying at the moment, what they're doing with the Belt and Road project and stuff is because they know they plan, they do those like Maoist 10-year plan, 20-year plan, 50-year plan stuff, and we really have to do that with not just renewables, but stuff that we can do for ourselves, because once your supply chains are cut, you're looking at civil disaster.
All right, there's a book Mike Joy put me onto called When the Trucks Stop Running. He said...
He's one of the long emergency guys.
Yeah, so you've got 3 days and the supermarkets are empty, and then what do? So most of the people I know, they're planting gardens.
That's the best. So planting gardens, community gardens. Yeah. My friend said, Tyler Smith, he's got good. He's got a good guy,
I can imagine. hold that. The Invisibles, tell me about the fucking Invisibles.
Grant Morrison is a Scottish comic book artist. He wrote this he's done amazing stuff. But he wrote this wonderful graphic novel collection called The Invisibles. The idea is that anybody in power looks on normal people, on the people that clean their toilets, on the people that keep their water coolers stocked with water and stuff. They see them as invisible. So if you're invisible, then you're unseen. You've got access. You've got unprecedented access. You want to put liquid LSD in their water coolers and change the defence industry. The defence industry has a meeting here every year in New Zealand. We protest it, they move it around the country. So say you're just filling up their water coolers, you could put liquid LSD and their water coolers and change all their minds about like selling weapons of mass destruction. It's the perfect thing. You clean their toilets, you can go in there and screw with them every day, and they wouldn't know, they wouldn't even suspect you, because you're invisible to them, and that we're all invisibles and we should all be part of that army.
It seems to me also that anybody under the age of 40, I might be wrong about that, is kind of disenfranchised, because the boomers like me grabbed everything. How do you get your hands on the world? Where does your power come from? How do you make change? You're a poet, right? Do you use your poetry?
See, poetry and comedy are those things where people say their stuff and feel like they're making a difference by saying their stuff, but you're not. You're just talking to the same people that are into the same stuff and that feel the same stuff, and so you're actually negotiating no change.
But you feel better.
Oh yeah. And you feel like you're part of it. And that's the whole thing with the internet now, is everybody's part of a little group. And so nobody's nobody's like crazy, washed up emos writing manifestos in the parents' basement like me.
When you were 12, you discovered T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland.
No, when I was younger than that, because my granddad used to read me the old Boston's Book of Practical Cats, and he died when I was 5. And I went back to my parents' bookshelf and found 12 poets, and it had T.S. Eliot in it. And I was like, dum dum dum, what are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this dry rubbish? Son of man, you cannot say nor guess.
How old were you?
Like 5. I knew Proof Rock off by heart by the time I was 6.
Oh, Proof Rock's my favourite. That's one of the poems everybody must have to read, if not learn.
I love that, and Dad tested me to see if I still knew it off by heart, and I did.
And you did? Oh, that's great. See, that's the thing in classes, when our daughter went to the local school, and none of that stuff was there, and I thought if every child in this room could hear that one poem, the doors would open. There'd be questions. They'd ask questions rather than just receive instruction.
But see, this was the last time I got arrested. I was trying to explain to the police that the whole situation was Kafkaesque, and they thought I was making shit up, and I was trying to tell them about the giant cockroach and stuff, and they're like, whoop, 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 whoop. And none of them knew basic words. And I came back to Mum, and Dad picked me up. He said, "Ooh, we've got to stop meeting like this." And I said, "Oh my God, I thought they had to have like 7th form now. Why are they so thick?" And Mum said that because boys were having trouble with English, they actually dumbed down the language when she was a school teacher. They made a point of dumbing down the language.
So rather than improve the child, they put the level down, like the swimmability of a river. You know, if it's too poisonous, we'll just take the levels up. So make it, you can have more poison, it's going to be okay. Okay, sorry, that's a bad analogy. Carry on.
No, but it's really quite a good analogy, because that's where our whole society's gone like.
Can you tell me about climate extinction, the Extinction Rebellion?
That these kids are wonderful, and I'm so proud of them, but they're quite politically naive, and I was at that age too. I remember a Tibet protest when I was about 15. I actually got done for inciting to riot, was dropped a breach of peace, but it was a peaceful protest, and we were like, peaceful protest, and they had to clear the road because we were blocking the Chinese premier, and the police started using their clubs, and such a dumb little hippie. I put my hands, this woman police officer was like clubbing people that were sitting down across the road. I put my hand on her shoulder and said, "How can you do this to people? This is a peaceful protest." And she said, "You touched me, that's assault," and clubbed me. And I just like went mental and screamed at everyone to like, kicked her in the head and screamed at everyone to riot. And like, of course it didn't go down very well. And it's when you're that age, you think, if you're idealistic, you have these ideals, and you think that society that tells you these ideals would go with it, but society doesn't. They'll so there's a lot of those climate change children are being sucked in by like petroleum companies saying, "Yes, we'll do something about it, come and talk to us," and they're like, "Yay, we're winning," and they're not winning, they're being detourned.
Right.
They're being turned as a genuine rebellion, and so it's being turned against itself.
Gotcha.
And we've got to be aware that that is the format of the spectacle commodity society.
Okay, so as a poet, the weapon you have is words. Has the power gone out of that?
Children don't even speak words. Even people my age don't understand a lot of the words that I use, because we have devalued language. Orwell, he talks about that, about the repurposing of words, and how many positive words of meaning, of hope, and that have been turned into company logos. How many things like the Tory Party is strong and steady, are strong and stable in England, when it's obviously neither. And Trump, that everything's either fake news or it's or he's good, he's this, he's that, he's smart, stable genius. Oh yes, because if you're a smart, stable genius, you have to tell everybody you're a smart, stable genius.
Okay, so there's PR everywhere. So if you're young, you join Extinction Rebellion, you go out on a march, and you sit down in front of a train. The train stops. You get up and go away feeling great, then the train continues. Do they know that the train continues? Are they aware of that? Or do they go home and say, Dad, guess what, we were in a rebellion today and I think the world's changed?
They go home hoping they're beautiful, idealistic children, and they go home thinking that they've made a difference.
Okay.
In this case, in a peaceful way, we need to have the plan for bringing it back to what we can provide for ourselves in New Zealand, and what resources that we can work out to be able to share out amongst the people. Right. If our government won't, and we do have hope with. Oh my God! I really am so worried about the Green Party.
All those promises that they'd made, the big ones, didn't eventuate. The capital gains, the Zero Carbon Act, to me is just mindless rubbish. That's just me. So when the Green Party were on the outside, they were barking like a dog at a wild animal, a dangerous animal, and now they're in its jaws, it seems.
I'm afraid that I was a member of the Green Party and I walked out because I actually, if you see the people who were promoted up the list, there was 2 Americans, I'm not sure, but there were 2 Americans promoted up really fast and hard against all the people that I knew that had been doing grassroots stuff here in New Zealand for a long time. And I don't know everybody and I don't know everything, but it seemed, this one woman, I was really concerned. The Americans do have a political...
wedge?
No, they've got a place where they train people.
Yeah.
It's called the University of the Americas.
Yeah, is that in Atlanta or something? The University of the Americas.
Yeah, where they teach South American dictators how to be South American dictators.
Yeah. So you're afraid of infiltration in our political system?
Well, you look at the groups back in the 60s, like the Weathermen and the Youth International Party and the Black Panthers. The information that's only coming out now 50 years later of who they had in there. The guy, that Gonzo in the Muppets, if you remember Gonzo?
Yeah.
He's based on a true person who was the leader of the Crazies. It wasn't as political as the Youth International Party, but it was part of all of that, running a pig for president and stuff. And he used to wear the silver helmet and the purple cape, and that's why Great Gonzo was based on him.
Oh, cool.
Well, it's turned out that he was a CIA narc. So Gonzo was a narc.
Oh, brilliant.
And
so in this country at the moment, there's a lot of Chinese influence. It seems to be every time there's a political leader somewhere, in the shadows there's a Chinese character of some kind. Is that a racist thing to say, or is that a political thing to say?
It's an absolutely true thing to say, and I don't even think that the Chinese would deny it, because they believe in influence in the same way that the Americans have been doing this influence for so many years. The Chinese feel that they have to be in the same position, and they're just trying to build up their supply lines for their country in the coming crisis.
Right. Well, it's an interesting thing that, because when we opposed the water bottling from the aquifers in Christchurch, a lot of people said, well, you're racist because you don't like it because it's Chinese doing it. I wouldn't like it if my grandmother was doing it.
Like, these are people that don't have a vested interest in New Zealand. They have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo in China, which I don't think is very nice. I walked out of the Communist League when I was young because of the Chinese influence. It's the same propaganda as America's feeding us. It's just coming from China, and so people think that somehow it's not the same, but it's exactly the same.
Exactly the same, yeah, sure.
You're looking at an imperialist power that wants to suck our resources because it's screwed its own country. The whole of the Yellow River Plain is a benzene spill. They used a lot of the same policies as Soviet Russia, and Soviet Russia funneled off all of... There used to be, when I was young, the biggest inland sea was called the Aral Sea.
I saw it on the web.
It's gone. Yeah. It's not even on maps anymore because it doesn't exist.
So again, children, you've got to offer them...
You've got to offer them a genuine revolution. You've got to offer them something that, because there is no hope. There is no hope under capitalism. It's infinite growth on a finite planet. When I was 6 years old, I knew that that was an impossible fallacy. And I didn't know economists. I hassled economists, and they told me that I just didn't understand economics, but I actually understood a lot better than they did. And so you can't offer capitalism anymore with hope. There is no hope. I mean, the Americans have that American dream thing where, oh, you might be the person at the top who gets to live in the bunker, because that's actually their thing. The Ayn Rand stuff, I didn't realise because I never read it, because I thought it was horrible shit. And they actually believed that they'd go to the bunker while everybody else died and come out and just start a new race, like Jeffrey Epstein with his sex slaves. How wonderful! That's just what we all need. So we have to essentially overthrow capitalism, because it is a fake system based on growth, and we have to put in the things like this is why it's so amazing and important on that grassroots level of the people who are growing their gardens and stuff. I'm a revolutionary failure. I enjoy decadent capitalism to the extent of drugs and not gardening. So, but I can offer my knowledge. And so if we can, the self-sustaining things, New Zealand is the perfect place to do it. This is the place that they're all looking to flee. Dimitriolov, one of those long emergency guys, he thought that he was going to do a talk. He was getting paid to do a talk, and he got there and he thought he was in the green room being mic'd up, and they were talking to him, and then he realised that he'd just been hired by he paid a huge amount, by like 5 hedge fund managers to tell them how they could survive what they had caused. They are buying bunkers in New Zealand, so they said New Zealand or Alaska, where is the place to be? And he told them New Zealand, and so a lot of them are buying bunkers here. So these are the people, if this is the way, there was a documentary done looking for the people that had the bunkers. It's not that, it's wine cellars with water piped in from their own reservoirs. So those are the places that we have to find out so that we can get the bastards when it all goes down.
So what do you do about housing?
I would say that we let people use the people are land banking in New Zealand, especially rich foreigners who see this as an escape. People have empty houses here. It doesn't work for them to rent them, because it makes more money just having them, and just having them for yourself, because once you're that rich, who gives a toss? And so there's 6 empty houses for every homeless person in New Zealand. Well, we just either force them to rent, or, well, no, we shouldn't force them to rent, because currently our social services are paying landlords. And landlords, when I was young, a landlord was a bad thing. A landlord was an evil Dickensian bastard that was making money off people. Now landlords are they're the backbone of society somehow. They get all our money from the welfare, because most people are paying more in rent than they're getting in the benefit. And or even in minimum wage jobs. Oh my God, 2 parents in a minimum wage job paying for a 4-bedroom house for their kids, you're looking at $600 in Christchurch. You're looking at maybe $900 in Auckland in some places. And that's just... So there are Soviet countries like Belarus. We were talking about Belarus with our friend Gregor, and they have a higher standard of living, because even though they earn so little, their cost of housing is so little, they actually have so much more disposable income by value than we do in New Zealand. How does Belarus, how do they have more disposable income for art, for going out, than New Zealanders?
Well, the reason is they've got a better national anthem. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't.
It's fantastic. I'll play it at the end of the interview.
Go Belarus.